I consider this disloyal, Victoria said. Her voice was a shard of ice. She stared at me from behind that ridiculously large mahogany desk, a queen on a throne of polished wood and corporate power. After everything HarborPoint Communications has done for you. I clutched my purse on my lap. My knuckles were white. Anything to stop my hands from shaking. The initial shock of the 9 a.m. summons had evaporated, replaced by a cold, heavy knot twisting in my stomach. I knew. I knew what was happening. Victoria, she held up a hand, a single, perfectly manicured finger stopping my words midair. Don't bother denying it. Her nail tapped, a sharp little click, on a printed email lying in front of her. My blood ran cold. I have confirmation. You interviewed with North Bay Solutions last Thursday. She paused, letting the accusation hang in the silent, sterile air of her office. You took a half day, I believe. For a dental appointment, thought. My name is Addison Walker. I'm 31 years old. For 6 years, I've poured everything I have into HarborPoint Communications, right here in Spokane. 6 years of tripling my client portfolio, of bringing in millions of dollars in revenue, of earning the trust of every major account on our roster. None of it mattered now. Not a single win, not a single late night, not a single weekend sacrificed. It had all been erased by one interview. One attempt to be paid what I was worth. Security will meet you at your desk, Victoria said, her voice completely flat, devoid of any emotion. It was as if she were ordering office supplies. You can collect your personal belongings. Your building access is revoked. Immediately. She slid my company ID across the vast expanse of her desk. The plastic card skittered to a stop just inches from my trembling fingers. I've already disabled your email access. The injustice of it was a physical thing. A fire catching in my chest, burning up my throat. 3 years. 3 consecutive years I had walked into this same office. I'd come armed with meticulously prepared presentations, charts, data, achievements. I'd shown market rate salary comparisons. I had asked, professionally and respectfully, for a raise that I had earned 10 times over. And for 3 years, I got the same answer. It's a tough budget year, Addison. And then I'd watch her stand up at the quarterly meetings, a champagne flute in her hand, announcing record profits to the entire company. I took a slow, deep breath. I forced the air into my lungs. Then I stood up, straightening the blazer I had bought specifically to look the part of a loyal, successful employee. I met her gaze. I understand. Victoria almost looked disappointed. Did she expect me to cry? To beg for the job that had been undervaluing me for years? Instead, I extended my hand across the desk. A chasm of mahogany between us. I wish you and HarborPoint continued success, I said. My voice was a rock. Steady. Clear. Not a tremor of the emotional earthquake happening inside me. She hesitated. For a split second, confusion flickered in her eyes. Then she took my hand, a brief, limp shake. The security guard, a man named George I'd said hello to every morning for 6 years, hovered awkwardly by my desk. He wouldn't make eye contact. I packed my things into a flimsy cardboard box. My family photos. A stupid little cactus that had somehow survived my neglect. 6 years of my life, my awards, my little desk toys, all crammed into a box that once held printer paper. I felt surprisingly, unnervingly calm. My colleagues shot worried glances over their cubicle walls. I saw pity in their eyes. Fear. I just smiled. A small, reassuring smile. No drama. No tears. No scene. Just dignity. I walked out of those glass doors for the last time. Door clicks shut, the April sunshine hit my face, warm and bright. And in that moment, I realized something. A truth so sharp and clear it almost made me laugh. Victoria thought she was punishing me. She thought she was ending me. She couldn't have been more wrong. As I placed the box in the trunk of my car, feeling the solid thud as it landed, my phone buzzed. Phone buzzes, a text message. From a name that made my heart leap into my throat. David Clean. The CEO of North Bay Solutions. The message was short. 5 words that changed everything. Can we move our final discussion to today? 2 p.m.? I smiled. A real smile this time. Victoria had no idea. She had just lit the fuse on her own implosion. She thought she was winning a battle, but she had just handed me the ammunition to win the war. It's funny, the things you think about when your life gets detonated. 6 years. 6 years of grinding, of hustling, of believing. All of it fits into a single, sad-looking cardboard box. As I drove away from Harbor Point, the box rattling in my trunk with every bump in the road, the last 6 years played out in my mind like a movie I'd seen too many times. I'd walked into that company so green the first practically squeaked. Fresh out of WSU with a marketing degree and a head full of ambition. They started me at the bottom, of course. Making coffee runs. Organizing meeting notes. The grunt work nobody else wanted. But I didn't care. I was hungry. I worked. I stayed late, volunteered for the miserable projects, the clients everyone else called it demanding. I called them misunderstood. I built relationships. I listened. Within 2 years, they gave me the mid-tier accounts. By year 4, I landed the big one. The whale. North Bay Solutions. They were worth nearly 30% of Harbor Point's entire annual revenue. And their CEO, David Clean, he asked for me. Specifically me. He'd requested me to be their account manager after I jumped on a grenade to save a campaign their last rep had completely fumbled. "You're the only one who gets it," David had told me over a coffee, his eyes intense. "You seem to know what we need before we even ask." From that day on, our partnership soared. North Bay didn't just stay. They extended their contract. They doubled their marketing budget. Victoria was thrilled. Of course she was. She took me into that same mahogany-lined office, the one I just left in disgrace, and she beamed. "This is the kind of initiative we value, Addison." The words tasted like ash in my mouth now. Value. That's a funny word. It never quite translated into my paycheck. My first request for a raise came right after that North Bay win. I had the numbers. The metrics. The revenue charts that screamed my success. I laid it all out for her. "It's just not in the budget this year, Addison," Victoria had said, her face a mask of practiced regret. "But your contribution is noted." Noted. Like a footnote in someone else's story. I swallowed it. The economy was shaky, I told myself. I was still building my reputation. The next year, I brought in 3 more major clients. I won an industry award for a campaign I designed from scratch. I walked back into her office. Same data. Better results. Same answer. "Next year will be better," she promised, her smile tight. "We just need to tighten our belts a little longer." The next day, she pulled into the executive parking spot in a brand new silver Lexus SUV. A week later, the company leased an entire new floor in our building. Belts were tightening somewhere, but it sure as hell wasn't around here. Still, I stayed. Loyalty. It's a disease. You think it'll be rewarded. You believe in the work, in your clients, in your colleagues. You keep your head down and you keep delivering. The final straw came 6 months ago. The third denial. It was almost comical. I had just finished negotiating a 40% increase in North Bay's annual contract value. A massive, massive win. I didn't even have to ask this time. She called me in. "Your performance is exceptional, Addison." My heart actually skipped a beat. This is it, I thought. Finally. But we're making a major investment in infrastructure. This year, she continued, dashing my hopes against the rocks. Perhaps we can revisit this in the summer. Something inside me just broke. It wasn't loud. It was a quiet, final snap. That night, I went home, poured a glass of cheap wine. And for the first time in 6 years, I updated my resume. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about anger anymore. It was about self-respect. I was worth more than empty promises and a pat on the head. I just never, ever expected she'd find out before I was ready to walk away on my own terms. Back in my apartment, the cardboard box sat on my kitchen counter like a tombstone. The reality finally crashed down on me. I wasn't on my lunch break. I wasn't working from home. I was unemployed. Fired. Disgraced. The weight of it pressed down on my chest, a physical pressure that made it hard to breathe. Phone rings, my phone screen lit up. Olivia. My best friend. My rock. I answered, my voice hoarse. I just heard, she said, no preamble. Her voice was fire and fury. Thomas texted me. Are you okay? Are you at home? Thomas. Harbopoint's IT guy. Olivia's boyfriend. Of course. News in a corporate office travels faster than light. I'm processing, I said, sinking onto a kitchen stool. The linoleum felt cold through my socks. It happened so fast, Liv. It's completely insane, she seethed. I could practically hear her pacing in her apartment across town. It's beyond unfair. Everyone knows you're the only reason North Bay is still there. Everyone. Victoria is just intimidated. She's a petty tyrant who can't stand that you're better at the job than she ever was. She wasn't wrong. Victoria had been the star account executive before she moved into management. We all suspected she missed the glory. She was always inserting herself into my meetings, especially with North Bay. Trying to reclaim the spotlight. The worst part is how she did it, I said, the anger finally bubbling up past the shock. Like I was a spy. Like I'd committed treason. For looking for a job that would actually pay me my worth. It's her loss, Addie, Olivia said, her voice firm. And I mean this. Maybe it's for the best. You have been suffocating there for years. She was right. I knew she was right. I'd stayed out of loyalty to my clients, to my team. Not for myself. But the shame of it, being escorted out by George like a common criminal. That stung. Deeply. My phone beeped. Call waiting. I glanced at the screen. My heart hammered against my ribs. David Clean. Liv, I gotta go. I have to take this. It's North Bay. Go, she said instantly. Get it. And you call me the second you hang up. I took a shaky breath, swiped to answer the call, and held the phone to my ear. Addison, David's voice was calm, direct. He skipped the pleasantries. I just heard what happened at Harbopoint. Are you available to come in today? I'd like to accelerate our conversation. My world tilted on its axis. The knot of dread in my stomach was suddenly replaced by a surge of pure adrenaline. This wasn't an ending. It was an ignition. Yes, I said, my voice clear and strong. Yes, David. I can be there at 2 p.m. Excellent, he said. And then he added, and Addison? Don't worry about this morning. Sometimes these things have a way of working out for the best. I hung up the phone and stared at my own reflection in the dark screen. The woman looking back at me wasn't defeated. She wasn't unemployed. She was being set free. Victoria hadn't punished me. She had just handed me a key. I showered in record time, the hot water washing away the morning's grime and humiliation. I put on my best suit. The navy blue one. The one I called my closing suit. The one I wore when I was pitching a $1 million client and needed to feel invincible. As I stood in front of the mirror, applying my makeup, a strange sense of calm washed over me. The shaking was gone. The knot in my stomach had dissolved. In its place was a cold, hard certainty. Victoria thought she held all the cards. She thought firing me was a power move, a way to put me in my place. What she failed to understand was that you can't put someone in their place when they've already decided to leave. The humiliation of that morning had been a gift. A brutal, painful gift, but a gift nonetheless. It stripped away all my misplaced loyalty. It cauterized the wound of my dedication to a company that saw me as a line item, a disposable asset. I had given HarborPoint my nights, my weekends, my creativity. And in return, they'd shown me exactly what I was worth to them. Nothing. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time. Lipstick perfect. Hair in place. Eyes sharp. Whatever happened. Next, one thing was certain. I would never, ever again give my best to people who couldn't see it. It was time to stop asking for a seat at the table. It was time to build my own. The North Bay Solutions headquarters was like stepping into a different dimension. It occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming glass tower in the heart of downtown Spokane. Sunlight poured in everywhere. Unlike HarborPoint's office, a beige mausoleum of cubicles and recycled air, North Bay was alive. Open spaces, collaborative pods, walls of glass that showcased a breathtaking panorama of the mountains. It was a place built for the future. Not the past. As the elevator ascended with a silent, futuristic whoosh to the 30th floor, I rehearsed my lines. I had to explain my sudden availability. I had to do it without sounding bitter, without trashing HarborPoint. Professionalism. That was the key. Even when your insides were screaming. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. And there he was. David Clean. Not his assistant. Not a receptionist. The CEO himself, waiting for me. Addison, he said, his smile genuine as he extended his hand. Thank you for coming on such short notice. David was in his early 50s, with that salt and pepper hair that signals both experience and energy. He had a reputation for being a shark in business but a decent human being, a combination I'd come to appreciate during our years working together. I appreciate the flexibility, I replied, my handshake firm and dry. It's been an unexpected day. He chuckled, a low, knowing sound. Let's talk in my office. He led me through the workspace. It was buzzing with a low hum of focused energy. People were talking, whiteboards were covered in diagrams, the air felt electric with ideas. Several North Bay employees I knew from our account work looked up, saw me, and smiled. A few gave me a discreet wave. It felt right. David's corner office wasn't the opulent fortress Victoria had built for herself. It was smaller, more functional, but infinitely more welcoming. The chairs were arranged for a conversation, not an interrogation. Coffee, he asked. Please, I said. Once we were settled, steaming mugs warming our hands, David didn't waste any time. He got straight to the point. I received a call from Victoria Sanders this morning, he began, his eyes fixed on me. I braced myself. She informed me that you would no longer be handling the North Bay account. He paused. And that she would personally be overseeing our business until a replacement was assigned. I just nodded. I kept my expression a perfect, neutral mask. Inside, a little flare of anger sparked. Of course she would. Victoria, swooping in to save her biggest client. She couldn't stand the idea of anyone else having that relationship. What she doesn't know, David continued, leaning forward. His voice dropping slightly, is that we were already concerned. That hit me like a splash of cold water. Concerned? I asked, my professional mask slipping for a second. But, the latest campaign results were excellent. We exceeded projections by 23%. The results were excellent, he agreed, because of you, Addison. Your work. But we've noticed other things at Harbor Point over the past year. He ticked them off on his fingers. Delayed responses from anyone on your team but you. Quality control issues on smaller projects. And frankly, he set down his mug with a soft clink, a pervasive sense that they're taking our business for granted. My mind was spinning. I had been so busy putting out fires, I never realized David and his team were seeing the smoke. 3 months ago, he said, our board of directors formally suggested we start exploring other marketing partners. I could feel the blood draining from my face. I resisted, he said quickly. I resisted because of you. Because of our relationship. With you. You have consistently shown an understanding of our brand, our market, our needs, that goes far beyond a typical client-agency dynamic. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? When you reached out to our HR department about potential opportunities here, David continued, his gaze unwavering, it felt like a sign. Like perfect timing. But I need to be absolutely clear about something, Addison. We were never planning to poach you. We have too much respect for professional boundaries. We were fully prepared to wait until you had given your proper notice at Harbor Point. It was important that he knew. That he understood I wasn't a backstabber. I was planning to give 2 weeks' notice, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Once I had a firm offer. That was always my plan. David smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. I believe you, he said. Your professionalism is one of the main reasons we're sitting here right now. He leaned back in his chair. Victoria's decision this morning simply accelerated our timeline. He reached over to his desk, picked up a sleek, navy blue folder, and slid it across the table to me. It stopped right in front of my coffee mug. This isn't an interview, Addison, he said. It's a job offer. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the folder. I opened it. My eyes scanned the words, but they didn't fully register until I saw the title. Director of Client Strategy. I would be building and leading a team. Managing all their external marketing partnerships. All their agency relationships. And then I saw the number. The salary figure. My breath caught in my throat. I read it again, sure I was mistaken. It wasn't just a raise. It was nearly double what I had been making at Harbor Point. It was more than I would have dared to ask for in my wildest dreams. This is very generous, I managed to say. My voice a whisper. David shook his head. No, he corrected gently. It's market rate for someone with your experience and your proven results. He looked at me, his expression kind but serious. Sometimes, Addison, it takes leaving a place to finally realize what you're truly worth. The offer letter sat on my kitchen table like a sacred text. Signed. Scanned. Ready to be emailed back in the morning. I'd told David I needed the night to review it. A formality. A professional courtesy. We both knew my answer. My phone had been a constant buzz all afternoon. A flurry of texts from my old colleagues at Harbor Point. The jungle drums of office gossip were beating loud and fast. First, the news of my unceremonious firing. Then, the rumors of my immediate meeting at North Bay. I texted a few of my closer work friends back, keeping it simple, keeping it clean. I'm okay. We'll tell you more soon. No need to get dragged into the drama. Then a text from Thomas, Olivia's boyfriend in IT, came through. A little piece of intel from behind enemy lines. Victoria called an emergency all-hands meeting after you left. Total train wreck. Told everyone you were terminated for breach of company loyalty. Said we should all remember that Harbor Point rewards loyalty above all. I had to laugh. The irony was so thick you could choke on it. She was trying to make an example of me. A warning to the others. But from the tone of Thomas's text, it was backfiring. Spectacularly. Another message buzzed in. This one from Jessica, the sweet girl who worked the front desk. She's been locked in her office making frantic calls all afternoon. Looks super stressed. Guess someone's worried about losing a certain big account.
Wink?
I didn't respond to that one. There was no joy for me in picturing Victoria's panic. Only a deep, reaffirming certainty that I had dodged a bullet. A culture that preaches loyalty but practices exploitation isn't a culture. It's a trap. My phone rang again. Phone rings, an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, my voice cautious. Addison Walker. Addison? This is Elaine Winters. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Elaine Winters. She wasn't just a VP. She was on the board of directors at HarborPoint Communications. My blood turned to ice. Board members do not call fired mid-level employees. Ever. I understand. She began, her voice crisp and authoritative, that there was an incident today regarding your employment. Incident. That was one word for it. I would like to meet with you tomorrow morning to discuss it, she continued. I believe Victoria may have been hasty in her decision. And there it was. The penny dropped with a deafening clang. Victoria, in her fit of pique, had fired her most valuable account manager, the one who personally handled their biggest client, without getting board approval. And now, North Bay, their golden goose, was officially a flight risk. They weren't calling out of concern for me. They were calling to perform emergency surgery on their balance sheet. Damage control. I appreciate the call, Ms. Winters, I said, my voice perfectly level, a skill I was rapidly perfecting. But I'm afraid that won't be necessary. I've already accepted another position. A beat of silence on the other end of the line. Pure, stunned silence. May I ask where? She finally asked, a slight edge to her voice. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I don't think that would be appropriate for me to share at this time. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear the gears turning in her powerful brain. Addison, she said, her tone shifting, becoming smoother, more persuasive. If this is about compensation, I am certain we can revisit those conversations. The board values your contribution to HarborPoint greatly. The nerve. The absolute, stunning nerve of it. 3 years of my contributions being noted but never valued. 3 years of spreadsheets and documented successes being met with budget excuses. Now, suddenly, with 30% of their revenue on the line, the board greatly valued me. It's not just about compensation, Ms. Winters, I replied, the truth of the words feeling solid and real. It's about respect. It's about a company recognizing an employee's worth before they have one foot out the door. Perhaps we should discuss this in person, she pressed, not giving up. Tomorrow morning. My office. I thought about it. I had the signed offer from North Bay. I had my new future sitting on my kitchen table. I had no intention of ever setting foot in HarborPoint as an employee again. But there was something appealing about it. Not to negotiate, but to close the book on my own terms. I can meet at 9 a.m., I agreed. But I want to be perfectly clear. I have signed an employment contract elsewhere. This is not a negotiation. Understood, Elaine said. But her tone said, challenge accepted. After I hung up, I poured myself a large glass of wine and stepped out onto my small apartment balcony. The spring air was cool and clean. The city lights of Spokane were just starting to glitter against the deep blue of the twilight sky. Tomorrow would be a day I never anticipated. A meeting I never thought I'd be taking. But maybe it was necessary. It was a chance to say everything that had gone unsaid. Not for them. For me. Email notification chime, my phone buzzed on the railing. An email notification. From David Clean. The subject line was simple, welcome to the team. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and looked out at the city. Whatever happened tomorrow, it didn't really matter. I wasn't looking back. The reception area at Harbor Point felt alien. Entering as a visitor, a guest in a place that had been the center of my universe for 6 years, was a surreal experience. Jessica's eyes widened in surprise when she saw me walk through the glass doors. Her practiced, professional smile faltered for a second. Addison. You're here for the meeting with Ms. Winters. I nodded, signing my name in the visitor log. Another layer of strange. That's right. I'll let her know you've arrived, Jessica said, then leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. For what it's worth, this whole place is a dumpster fire today. Everyone is talking about how wrong they did you. You were the best of us, Addie. Her simple, genuine words were a balm on a wound I didn't realize was still so raw. Thank you, Jessica, I said, meaning it. That means a lot. The elevator ride up to the executive conference room was quiet. It gave me a moment to center myself, to pull on my armor. I'd worn the navy suit again. Not to impress them, but to remind myself, and them, that I was here as a professional peer, not as a spurned employee begging for scraps. Elaine Winters was already waiting. She stood as I entered the sleek, intimidating conference room. The long, polished table reflected the city skyline like a dark mirror. A slim, unmarked folder sat in front of her. In her 60s, with a severe bob of silver hair and a gaze that could probably strip paint, Elaine exuded the calm, unshakable confidence of someone who made million-dollar decisions before her first cup of coffee. Miss Walker. Thank you for coming, she said, her handshake firm and brief. Please, have a seat. I had expected Victoria to be here. I had steeled myself for another confrontation. But as Elaine closed the heavy door, clicking it shut behind us, it was clear this was a private audience. We were alone. I've reviewed your personnel file, Elaine began, opening the folder without any preamble. She wasn't one for small talk. 6 years of consistently excellent performance reviews. Documented, consistent growth in your account portfolio. She looked up from the papers, her sharp eyes locking onto mine. And 3 formal requests for a significant salary adjustment. All of them denied by Miss Sanders. She let that hang in the air. I was not aware of this pattern. I was stunned into silence. How could the board not know? Major compensation changes, yes, the board reviews those, she clarified, as if reading my mind. But management has discretion within certain established parameters. It seems Miss Sanders has been operating with a significant degree of autonomy. Her expression was a perfect corporate poker face, but her tone dripped with disapproval. I see, I said simply. What I don't see, she continued, her gaze dropping back to the file, is any documented justification for your termination yesterday. There is no company policy that prohibits employees from interviewing with other organizations. The word she used, I said, my voice quiet but clear, was disloyalty. Elaine's eyebrow arched, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. An interesting choice of words. Given the circumstances. She closed the folder with a soft, final thud. Miss Walker, I will be direct. The board would like to offer you reinstatement, effective immediately. She wasn't done. We would like to offer you the full adjusted compensation you requested in your most recent review, plus an additional 10% increase. And the new title of Senior Account Director. It was a hell of an offer. It was everything I had asked for and more. It was the validation I had craved for 3 long years. And it was too late. An apology painted in money. A desperate attempt to put the genie back in the bottle. That is a very generous offer, Miss Winters, I acknowledged, keeping my tone respectful. But as I mentioned on the phone last night, I have already accepted a position elsewhere. At North Bay Solutions, Elaine stated. It wasn't a question. I didn't have to answer. I just met her gaze. My new role begins on Monday. Elaine studied me for a long moment, her eyes searching my face, looking for a crack, a sliver of hesitation she could exploit. Victoria is concerned that North Bay may be reconsidering their long-term relationship with HarborPoint, given your departure. And there it was. The real reason. The raw nerve. This wasn't about making things right with me. This was about saving the North Bay account. It was all it had ever been about. That would be a question for North Bay, I replied carefully, keeping my professional wall perfectly intact. Indeed, Elaine nodded, a flicker of what looked like respect in her eyes. She appreciated the discretion, the refusal to be drawn into gossip or leverage my position. One last question, if I may. What could HarborPoint have done differently? To retain you? The question was genuine. I could tell. This wasn't a trap. This was a billion-dollar company asking for free, painful consulting. I took a breath. I gave her the truth. Recognize my value before I was forced to go looking for it elsewhere, I said simply. Loyalty is a two-way street, Miss Winters. HarborPoint demanded my unwavering commitment, but for 3 years, it repeatedly demonstrated that I wasn't worth a real investment. That creates an imbalance. And eventually, everything just breaks. Elaine nodded slowly, thoughtfully. A fair assessment. She stood up, extending her hand across the table. Thank you for your candor, Miss Walker. Whatever your next steps, I wish you nothing but success. I shook her hand. And then I walked out of that conference room, out of that building, out of that life, for the second and final time. A strange lightness filled my chest. This meeting hadn't been about a second chance. It had been about a first chance. The first chance to state my case to someone who might actually listen. The chance to reclaim my own story. To leave on my own terms, with my head held high, my dignity and my future firmly in my own hands. Victoria had inadvertently given me an exit. Elaine had, unexpectedly, given me closure. Now, it was time to build what came next.